Hello, Stuart Waddington.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm very well, and it's a beautiful Friday, and I've been really looking forward to speaking to you. And I would like you to start by telling anyone that's interested, in terms of my network is huge and global, and having introduced you to the Carolyn Williams show, it's a chance for you to tell people where you started in terms of the business, what really makes you tick, what really gets you up in the morning. So we'll start with you telling us who Stuart Waddington really is.
Wow, that's a big question. Thank you very much for having me on, by the way.
You're welcome.
Wellington, so yeah, you mentioned about business, so I kind of won't go all the way back as such, but I've got an ex-military background, so I've always had a big passion actually going back to the start of being doing what I love to do. I was not really academic at school. I was more sports driven, if you like. So I quite quickly had the opportunity to move towards education in sport, college, university, and then ended up in the military because there was this great opportunity to become a physical training instructor. So to do a wide variety of sports, and to give that sort of a bit of context, when I was younger, I was a swimmer. That was my main sport, if you like. But when they wanted me to train before school, after school, and train 6, 7, 8, 9 times a week, I was like, I want to do everything else as well. So I want to play badminton, I want to do athletics, I want to play football. So it was a natural fit because as a physical training instructor, you've got to almost have that jack of all trades, master of none. And there's a lot of very high flyers that come in. There was a GB cyclist on my intake, GB pole vaulter. So it is a high standard that you have to go through and do the basic training and a vetting process. So I was in for 12 years, and within that process, I had to specialise. And the specialisation that I chose was adventure training instructor. So even though you keep as a physical training instructor, I did a year-long added course about 4 or 5 years in, and you become an instructor in all the outward bound sports, if you like, or disciplines. So rock climbing, canoeing, kayaking, skiing, potholing, all these great things. And it was amazing. And the military used the outward bound medium, if you like, as the environment to challenge people and to test them individually and as teams. So that's where the team leadership, team dynamics came from. And that was my big passion that I found in the military about people. And to put it in sort of layman's terms, it's like people watching, about being able to set an environment up and give them the opportunity to be stretched. As you can probably imagine, we take groups between 8 and 12 out on the hill or out on the disciplines. And one day we'd be doing climbing, so we'd be dealing with operating at heights. And one or two people, as we know, don't like heights. So you're asking them to operate and do things, not just climb, do tasks, work together, and they'd be uncomfortable. And then the next day we'd be out on the open water canoeing and kayaking, for example, and having to do challenges and tasks. So the person who was scared at heights the day before was fine again because they'd done that as a child, and then vice versa, somebody who was fine at heights is suddenly at stretch on the water because they're a non-swimmer, for example. So as you can probably see, that the amount of different things that happens, and then we'd always at the end of each day facilitate the learning. How can we take this into your role? How can we develop you as a person? How can we push the team forward? So that is basically a quick whistle-stop tour of how I've come to what I do now, which is replicating the two things I loved in the military. So I've got a business which is in fitness, personal training, and boot camps, which is, I say it's a side hustle. It's a nice business to have, and I'm really passionate about keeping that. But my main business is online leadership and development training, and bringing all the things that I did in the military out of the military bubble into the world. And I'm 2 years into the journey. It's been a fantastic journey. It's been challenging. Things take time. People that have tried to set up businesses and are in setup will know it doesn't always go right. But it's all the things that don't go right that make you who you are now. So yeah, does that answer your question?
It's a wonderful answer. And it, as you can see, makes me smile because it's part of my world and has been for the last 30 plus years in terms of fitness and outdoor. Because my dad, who was a World War II RAF pilot, when he came home, he would set up youth camps because he became a youth leader, having been demobbed from the RAF. And he would take us to Brecon.
Yes.
And there is a lake in Brecon called Llangors Lake. And we'd set up camp there on holiday time from school. And as 3 children, we'd be camping there in the holiday times. And then we'd go into the canoes because of the lake. And we'd then progress from the canoes into the dinghies. And we'd live, I think, in those days as a privileged kind of family because not many youngsters could say, oh, I've been sailing or I've been canoeing for the weekend and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I'd come back to school and they'd go, what have you done for the weekend? And then I'd start saying, well, I've been doing that. And they'd look at you and say, really? And I'd go, yes, I'm not imagining it. So I think the military provides you with so many opportunities to develop.
Yeah, definitely.
And the personal development is the side of it that I like because that's my world. So what struck me and the need for me to sort of interview you and chat to you was because I'd seen you on LinkedIn and I'd seen your lives and I had seen that you were very focused and very sharp and you gave a lot of incredibly good tips going live. And what I liked most was that you broke it down into such wonderful components to be able to follow. And as a result of that, you were getting lots of comments. And that's a sign of a good leader when you're encouraging others to be part of the whole thing, the process. And there you were talking about having eye contact. And I then said to you, because I'm used to doing everything in what I call an ad-lib way now, because I've understood the media world to such an extent that I just want to be able to capture you. So the answer you gave, I think, lights the room in a way that a lot of people, yeah, it does. So have you ever been asked the question, what is your why? Why does Stuart do what he's doing now?
Yes is the short answer. The long answer, and again, it goes back to what I just alluded to then, that when I tell people what I did in the military, people are like, why did you leave? and it's got to be quite a big why. I do quite a lot of work with service leavers, or I'm going back into it and surrounding myself more with service leavers, because there's a lot of things coming out now that, because of the current situation and everybody going online, I've been operating online for about 12 months. There's a lot of platforms out there now that people are sharing stories and talking about why they've come out. And I was really quite focused, and you used that word before, about when I was leaving, I saw there was quite a few people that left who only really started thinking about leaving when they'd actually left. I was really passionate about getting it right, and it was a massive decision for me to make because, as you can imagine, I was getting paid to do what I love to do. It gave me the opportunity to have my family. We lived in beautiful, fantastic places, and it was like, well, why would I leave? And the biggest reason was I wanted to be a master of my own destiny. Yeah. And it sounds all big and grand, but it kind of made me think that I could do something more. And that's not to debunk the military whatsoever. I kind of always push people to go and have a look at the military because, like you said, it gives you so much. And I don't think people realise what it gives you until you leave. as well. And it's been quite eye-opening seeing what I can bring to the corporate world, what I can bring to business owners. And just to kind of go off the question initially a little bit, is that I thought when I left that I'd have a negative because I didn't have any business experience, so I didn't have any exposure to the corporate world. But when you actually speak to the right people with the right understanding and the right mindset and the right focus on developing themselves, they actually really like the fact that I don't have any business bias. And I come and tell different stories and I come at things at a different angle. And it's quite refreshing that I don't use the same jargon that they hear all the time. And obviously me coming from a military background, we've got loads of military jargon that we're fed up of hearing. So when we come and tell stories and work with people, it's quite refreshing that they like to hear different stories. So my why was Mastermind Destiny is like the biggest one, but then I went away for 6 months and I had a young family at the time and we wanted to settle ourselves and not be moving around all the time. Even though it was great when I was in, it was just a decision that we made that the children were starting to get to school age. And even though we've got friends that have got fantastic children that are very resilient from moving around all the time and have fantastic experiences, we just thought it fitted for us that we wanted to come home and be nearer to family and friends. So those are the two big whys, really.
They're incredibly family and community focused, your answers, which I believe are part of core values. And so moving from the core value, my next question, because I listened to how you described the mastermind kind of thing. So do you spend time masterminding? Do you spend time speaking to somebody that you look at as a equal and a mentor? Is that something you do?
Yeah, do you know what? And that's something that I kind of am really pleased that I really did I focus on it? I probably didn't. Whether it was accidental, it probably was an unconscious decision, but I'm looking back and especially in the current climate of what's happening and where I'm going with my business, I'm so pleased that probably my big push to do my own business, because as you can imagine, when I left the military, I was like, I need to pay the bills, we need to get a nice house, all the things that you get given when you're in the military, you suddenly have to start thinking about.
Yeah.
So for the first 12 months, I was like I need to work and freelance, do some consultancy work, start my business, and obviously the fitness side, the side business was ticking along. But to actually put a foothold on my own business, it took me 12 months to be like, this is great, I'm working, but this is not what I left for. I left to have my own thing, and let's just call it a thing, because I still didn't know at that point what that was going to be. So I surrounded myself, and I did get a coach, a mentor, and I think that's quite important because obviously I now deliver those services in a different category under the bracket of leadership. But how I explain it to some people is, if I hadn't have done that, I probably would have got to where I am now, but it would have taken me probably 2 more years to do it. Surrounding myself with people who could push me, make me accountable for where I'm going and how I'm doing it, give me some vital information that rather than me having to go out there and spend hours trying to find it, they were putting the right information right in front of me. And from that moment, 12 months ago, I now found myself surrounded with very credible people, and it's a privilege to be in the company that I am in. Because there's a lot of people that I'm able to talk to, bounce ideas off, and I call it like different circles of influence. So I've got like a core few people that I bounce ideas off and we actually work on the business. But then it's nice to have people that are at different arm's length, if you like, because as you've probably experienced and a lot of people experience, if you're focused on one thing, we only see what we see, don't we? So you think you're producing something that's fantastic and everybody's going to want to come onto it. And then when you present it to somebody that's not in your focused inner circle, and I've had this, by the way, and it's not a very nice experience, but you need it. because they'll go, "Sure, I don't know what you're doing. Like, tell me what's the outcome? I don't get it." And you're like, "Well, if you don't get it, my customer's not going to get it."
Yeah.
And it's a real heart-wrenching, like, I've spent a couple of weeks on like writing this and planning it and trying to talk to my customers, and you're saying you don't get it. And it's like, but you need somebody like that to test you and keep you on your toes.
Yes, there were lots of key words there. And I have to come back to compliment the military aspect of training. As I explained, my dad was in the RAF, and I have a son who has been in the army, and he's now a battalion sergeant major. So I've watched him grow and develop, and I've shed tears that most parents would when they have to go overseas and do their real work. And so I come from what I call a very real world, that it's not all glitzy in terms of the sophistication of recruitment. When they said, join the army, is sexy, you travel the world, etc. Yes, that's true. But there is the realness attached to it, where you've got to do some pretty hard work. And as a result of that training, I feel, and this is not me being biased, this is me being in the corporate world for a good 31 years, the people who are most loyal, the people who are the most disciplined, the people who have the most drive tend to be military. And therefore, big corporate companies love having employees who previously were in the military. And so when I saw your lives, I could see how committed you were, how focused you were, how crisp you were, and how simple you broke everything down. And you've just explained why, and you've explained your why. So having said that, I'm asking you to look back in terms of what you were as a young boy and to who Stuart is now. Were there or was there anybody specifically who inspired you in terms of before you entered the military or in the military and since the military? So are there any kind of inspirational people in your...
Yeah, so I wouldn't say there was one particular person, but I would say, I don't know whether I'm allowed to say just sport in general. So if you look at sport, and I just love high performance, and I love, we said about people watching, and it kind of all knits together and links together from what I've come from and what I'm doing now. Because you can obviously, I ask people about, are they aware of when their leadership journey started? And a lot of people think of things they're aware of, but then if they look before that, there's quite a few things that knit together to actually get them to where they are now. So what I mean by that is that the ability to do lots of different skills, and I'm one of these annoying people that pick up skill quite quickly because I've done a lot of different things, and that's not to... I was talking to somebody only yesterday about the transferable skills from skiing and snowboarding.
Yes.
And I've got an analytical thinking head. So you can go from one thing to another and say, what can I transfer over? Then it'll, rather than starting from scratch, you're actually starting from a higher place because you've got the skills that you brought from previous experience. And just to give a complete thing that your audience will be able to make reference to, is that there's lots of transferable skills from being a great leader and a manager to being a parent. And that gets quite a lot of good conversations going and different stories about some of the things that you have to think about. And again, as we know, there's no rule book when it comes to children. There's no right or wrong way as such. But yeah, it just makes people think, and it's really interesting. So in the military, there was one person, there was a flight sergeant when I went through my adventure training instructor course. And again, at the time, you'll laugh, we were only the first couple of weeks in, and we did an experiential learning task. And it sounds all grand, but all we had to do was go sea kayaking. And we were just told to get on with it. And there was 6 of us, and the instructor came with us and the flight sergeant. And it was a Menai Straits, so quite a dangerous area to get it wrong. And we had to pack all our kit, we had to navigate, we had to get everything sorted. And due to the complexity of that, and we were brand new, there was a lot of things that went wrong. A lot of things that went wrong. And I won't go into too much detail. But we facilitated that afterwards. And this flight sergeant sat us down around a bench. And we were coming from a military standpoint of, oh, we're going to be told off, oh, we're going to be told what to do. But it was the first time in adventure training, rank is left on the bus, and you're developing people, and there's no rank. You all got a voice, and some people are a bit uncomfortable with that, but it's amazing to see them when they start to open up and talk. So anyway, we sat around this bench, and we must have been there for about 2 hours. And it wasn't until we got into the pub later that we were like, how did he do that? Because he only asked 1 or 2 questions, and we were talking about our experiences. So he was facilitating a conversation and learning. And it's only now that I feel, probably 8-9 years later, that I'm starting to get the skill and the ability to listen and to observe. And the real skill of facilitating is to ask the right questions at the right times. And it's a skill to pick up. And that whole thing of saying, listening to what's not being said,
Yeah,
that's quite a good skill to have. So and again, you're always learning and developing. And I learn every time I take somebody through my leadership course, every time I work with a team. I love learning new things. Like I'll talk through my perspective. Yeah. They'll take that and put it in a completely different perspective. And I'll be like, brilliant. I love that. I'm going to use that. Okay, because I love stories. I love telling stories to put points across. So does that answer your question?
It does. Only you can tell your story, which is the tagline for my show. And it's true, because only you have walked your journey, and you're beginning this business world now with the skills that you have transferred and are doing so. Listening for me is a huge personal development quality that's massively underused and not even thought about. And one of the things that I would ask you to consider is about what is said in silence. The silence says far more. And once you quieten to a silence, because you're used to working on your own, you're used to working in nature, you're used to being quiet, then you will allow somebody to just eventually tell you something.
Yeah, do you know what? I've got some funny. We used to have, when we took groups out, and we had these groups for a week, every now and again their instructors would come for the day or sometimes come for the week. And there's some great examples of when the people who came were like, Stu, how do you not tell them the answer? How do you stay back and not tell them the answer? Because you know the answers to not everything, but tasks, challenges. And I'll give a great example. I took a group out, and we used to do a 2-day expedition. So we used to go out into North Wales, navigate around the hills, up around Snowdonia, and camp, wild camp, so not on a campsite, next to a clin, a small lake, or at the bottom of the mountain, and then walk for the following day. And it was quite, quite early on the second day with a particular group, and they went off in completely the wrong direction. And we walked for 2 hours in the wrong direction. Okay. And they decided, obviously, that they were in the wrong place. And I was there to make sure they were safe. That was the only role I had, and to facilitate them in an environment where they could learn. So I just let them walk in the wrong direction for 2 hours. And people like that, 2 hours is a long time to walk in that direction. But they eventually came round. And obviously, if I'd have interjected, where's the learning? Like, they weren't in danger. We had the rest of the day to catch up where we were going. And then obviously from facilitating that, there was a conversation that 2 of the people in the group thought they were on the wrong direction but didn't say anything. So it's like, oh, brilliant. So why didn't you say anything? And can we make sure that doesn't happen again? And can we spot that as a group? Because obviously the group were like, why didn't you say anything? Like, why didn't you say anything? And it's that experiential learning. If you don't give people the experience or the time to learn, everybody learns at their own time. And that was so impactful in their week.
Yeah.
Over me saying after 10 minutes, guys, you're going the wrong direction, it's this way. And then if you do that, you then set the precedent for when they're stuck in the next day, when we're climbing, they'll just look at me and go, Stu, what's the answer? How do I do this? So it was a great experience and a great world to develop myself, but also to have a great impact on lots of people coming through the training centre.
That's about earning respect, and that's about trust. And it's also about learning from failure, because one of my conversations, I think before yours, Stuart, was about it's okay to fail, but it's okay to fail when you're in a secure, safe environment. It's different when you're falling off a cliff, or if I don't know about you, but my experiences of the wind changes while sailing have often led me to capsize. And I've often sort of thought, I don't particularly like the taste of this water, but I got to put up with it.
Yeah.
And it's learning to survive, because that's why your skills are there, to survive if you're swimming, if you're sailing. And so a lot of your training enables you. So it's an enabler. So what I'd like to sort of ask the next question on that one is perspectiveness. It's a huge one, and it's a huge one in business. And I gave an analogy this morning, which is why it's very topical and fresh for me at the minute. I saw, because I take a lot of photographs of the coastline here and cliffs, I saw a photograph that had been taken from a completely different angle I'd ever seen. Now, it wasn't aerial, because I'm used to sort of seeing aerial shots, but this was a completely different angle. And it just made me realize that, most of my shots are either side, frontal, or whatever, but I'd never taken one quite like this particular photographer. So it's on Facebook. I put it up, and I'm going to put it up on LinkedIn. And I equated that to an analogy for perspectiveness. We are used to doing certain things. We're used to going down a certain pathway. We're used to using this kind of tool. But all of a sudden, somebody comes in with a different angle, different mindset, different skill, and just blows your mind. So what's your view on perspection and how you see that in business?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I love talking about perspective. I've got this great story that I tell when I work with people, and it's part of the some of the 5-day challenges that I run for people in leadership and business. And I get people and clients start talking about rhinos and lions, and you'll be like, what's he talking about, rhinos and lions? So I saw a picture of, it was obviously a cartoon of a rhino painting the savannah. And on this painting is the Great Savannah, but it's got the horn of the rhino in the middle of the picture. So I love that. And I've used that to then say, I've expanded on it. And I say to people, well, listen, think about a lion and a rhino, and they're painting exactly the same savannah in front of them. And then they spend a couple of hours painting it, and then they come together and have a look at each other's pictures. And the rhino's going, I didn't see that. And the lion's going, what have you got this big grey horn on the picture for? And it's just quite a comical way of introducing people to, we only see what we see. And I've had some great experiences and great impact with, some clients have had some great impact on actually stepping into other people's shoes. And obviously between us, we're talking about rhinos and lions, but obviously the person who I'm dealing with, the business owner or the leader, is going in and going, this is one of those moments again. And I'm getting them talking about rhinos and lions, not to their clients, but about building relationships and understanding other people from different perspectives. And it can open up. And I've turned this, one of the things that I sat down after 12 months of being in the corporate world was, I was like, what have I seen which has been quite obvious? And there was two big things, and one of them is everybody's busy being busy. And the reason they're busy being busy is they don't see the perspectives, they don't take the time. And we're not talking about an hour or 2 hours. We can take 10 seconds to 30 seconds to just add so much perspective to what you're dealing with in your day and the people around you. So yeah, giving person that time to think. And there's another one, isn't there, about those two people standing either side of a 9 or a 6. So it's the same thing, that one person's seeing a 9, one person's seeing a 6. And again, it can be really impactful when people open up to that understanding that people might be seeing this problem or challenge from a different perspective. And that's the first step to actually doing something about it.
Yes. In leadership, it's vital. And this leads on to my next question to you, which is about LinkedIn and about social media platforms. And I want you to share your experience. I've got a longer experience, obviously, because I've been in it a longer time, in terms of I started with LinkedIn because of the profession, and I made sure that I had my CV written, and I changed it and I tailored it and I shaped it and I changed it. And then I looked at Twitter. Twitter became fashionable, and that was about 140 characters. And that meant for somebody like me who was Welsh, and I can speak for Wales as it were, it meant that I really had to focus on shortening my taglines. And hashtags came into it. Then Facebook took off in a huge way. And along comes Instagram. Now, I've gone through the whole platform in terms of using them for either a personal level, largely because of professional levels and a business. And I've come back to LinkedIn. So it's like a full circle. It's like this sort of circle of life as we go through. We always sort of start somewhere and we come back to it. What's your experience of LinkedIn?
So it's obviously a journey of getting onto these platforms. And I say that tentatively because I was never really a user of social media. I would be on social media just to keep in contact with people, and that was about it. I didn't post very much when I was in the military, this was. But then I saw it as a tool to help. You can imagine, when I had my boot camps and my fitness stuff as I was in the military and as I was exiting. So it suddenly became quite important that I posted about we'd done a boot camp and well done to everybody to turn up and post a picture. So that was the first time I was like, this is really powerful. Because if you, and one of the things that I always say I'm really proud about is the amount of communities and people that I'm bringing together. So that goes across the great boot campers that I have coming to my boot camps, to the great people that I have on my leadership program. It's nice to have a group of people who are like-minded, whether that be leadership or whether that be fitness. So it suddenly became quite apparent that this was a tool I needed to use. And I went onto Facebook. Obviously, that was where I was used to. And it was quite funny. And the reason I sort of say about this, specifically my LinkedIn journey, I was saying about I had people at different levels and people I used to bounce ideas off. This one particular person said to me, I bet you in 6 months' time that all you'll be talking about is LinkedIn. And I'll tell you the perspective of that is that I was, it was a little bit like imposter syndrome as well, without even liking to call it a label like that. And I've had conversations with my ex-colleagues about this, that considering where I've come from and the amount of experience I have, I was a bit unsure about going on to LinkedIn because it was suddenly this like professional network. And I was on Facebook and it was a bit more social and it was a bit more safe. And to suddenly put myself out there on LinkedIn and say, I know what I'm talking about, it was quite daunting. And I was like, I didn't know how to approach it. So yeah, fast forward. And this person was exactly right, because almost exactly, probably 4 months, but definitely 6 months, it's a great tool. I know it's changed as a platform. I'm using it a lot. I've changed quite a lot of my ways of working on there. So I don't do a lot of, and I'm quite good at selling other people's stuff. But when it comes to selling my own stuff, it doesn't fit right with me, which isn't a great business strategy. But I'll frame that as far as I don't want to be attracting people kicking and screaming onto my platforms. It needs to be a build the relationship. They know, like, and understand where I'm coming from, what I can add value to. So it's a natural process of people, like you say, you get the opportunity to follow and see. I've got the 5-day challenge, which is free for people to come onto and just understand what I can do for them and help them and add value. And then if they want to work with me afterwards, that's fantastic. If not, I've given them a great tool to go away and help them anyway. And then that's one of the things I'm really proud about, because there's people coming back to the 5-day challenge, or we have a call at the end and say, Stuart, I can't come on your challenge, on your leadership course now, but because of how good this 5-day challenge was, I'm going to make sure I get to the position where I can come onto it. So slowly but surely, you get traction, you speak to the right people. It's about being consistent. And again, with the whole COVID and the lockdown and I moved away from selling and just told my story and stayed relevant and gave little hints and tips. And it takes time, doesn't it, to get a platform for who you are, what you do. So
yes, it's your style that becomes recognizable, and it was a style that attracted me, which is a compliment to you. And there are many groups in LinkedIn. I can remember finding it rather unsocial to a certain extent, which is why Facebook to me appeals, because of the social aspect of media. But LinkedIn has changed and it's becoming more sociable. And the main group that attracted me was obviously to do with rugby, because there was a lovely Welsh rugby group there that was quite active, especially during times of the Grand Slam, the Six Nations, and the World Rugby Cup, because that in itself has, become hugely popular. So groups for me work. It's time consuming, because again, as you said about traction, and again, as you said, it's about the question, but it teaches you all these lovely key skills about engagement, about exchange, about giving. And the giver is the one that will receive in the long term. So have you had that experience?
Yeah, I think I'll kind of go back to the network and the community of people that I now have around me. I think that's more important to me, more than kind of saying that I've got loads of people asking me to, or monetary value, if you like. So I think through being consistent and through I remember when I first left and I was networking, in brackets labeled networking, I just kind of didn't get it. And I was like, this doesn't feel right. And then to fast forward, I had an experience where I got invited to an invite-only networking. And it was like a dinner where there was a guest speaker and only about 20 people around the table. And that was a milestone of me going, oh, maybe I'm doing something right here, because people are knowing what I do, how I do it, and liking me. And that's a big thing, isn't it? Because you're starting to get validation for what you're really passionate about. And you do, because it's all in good doing what I do, but you've also got to tailor it to actually attracting people to understand what you're doing.
Yeah.
So that's been a big thing. And again, I think there's a fine line in the LinkedIn side of things, as far as I like to tell a story, but there's always a question and a link that's got something to do with either what I do, but helping others as well.
Yes.
To get them thinking in a business way. So yeah, there's, and again, only, like you said, only you can tell your story.
Yes.
I think only you can find what works for you. And I think you see some people that are trying to fit in, and I'll fit in as in they're trying to get traction. They're trying to, they're looking at others and thinking, well, that's how they've done it, I'll try and do that. And in the short term, that might work. But in the long term, people not get into trouble, but it's not so, if you're not doing it for you, and you've not got that why and that passion, then I think it's like, as I was saying about creating content, I came full circle with kind of thinking, oh, what can I post? What can I post? And it's only till you think, well, just be me. I know what I'm talking about. I know my subject. I know my background. I know me. There's content flying all around me all the time. I could do content for, it's like, can you sell ice to the Eskimos? It's a bit like that. Can you put content on LinkedIn? I could do 10 different types of content just from what's in my office. So yeah, it's that mindset, I think, of once you're on it and you've started that journey, but it takes time. It takes time. It doesn't just happen.
They say that you are the sum of the 5 people that you mix with.
Yeah.
And so can you look at 5 people that you have at this minute in time through COVID? And
yeah, definitely. And what I'll do, I'll kind of add a level to that as well, because it's that kind of, have you heard that thing of if you're the most successful person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
In the wrong room.
You should be like pushing again. So I like the 5 people, but within my perspective, I kind of call it 3 people, because I want to get 2 people that are like going to push me and are like almost out of reach. And I like asking questions, and I like kind of reaching out to people. And as long as you do it in a professional way, it's amazing how many people that I've completely different on a sideline here, but I've got another business on paper that I think is going to be really big and really quite good. And there was, let's say there's 5 levels where I could pitch this idea in this business. Level 1 and 2 I could do straight away, because I know people in those fields, but it wasn't right. So I just went to level 5, and on LinkedIn I reached out to 2 or 3 people who would be at level 5 and asked a question. I said, I'm Stuart, I've got this idea, this is my background. And 2 of the 3 people were like, Stuart, I'll give you a number for this person.
Yes.
Tell them. That led to a meeting, and it's not gone anywhere yet because I'm spinning lots of plates at the minute, but it's only when you get yourself out there and have that perspective of, let's get great people around me, because they will you and make you bigger.
Yes, it's being proactive and taking action. It's being bold, and through being bold, you attract bold people in return. But it's also about being slightly confrontational in a very correct way, because until you learn how to confront and be bold enough to ask the correct questions, you're going to be spending a lot of time in and out with different levels that maybe are wasting your time. So that takes leadership again. So you've got all the skills there. We're coming to a close, because as you can see, I could talk forever with you because you're so interesting. But what I'd like you to say is, who do you feel are your dream clients now, during COVID and coming out of COVID? Who would be your dream clients?
So my dream clients, I've got 2 main areas that I'm working in now. So one is obviously leadership as a bracket is quite a large bracket. So I'm looking at working with online entrepreneurs, people primarily in tech. So it's been quite an interesting journey, because obviously my age, I'm a lot younger than a lot of people that are doing coaching mentoring, because they're coming to they've been there, done it, they've got the corporate experience, whereas I've obviously got a completely different angle. So I was challenged and tested on this to change my perspective, and this person was fantastic, because he said, well, do you think about all the people who are under 20 now, who are in tech, app development, because I'm in the generation of knowing what a computer looks like, not necessarily what it does. So that's been a massive learning curve. So I'm looking at people who are leading and driving a business forward, who are under 30, even under 20, from some of the examples and some of the people I'm talking with at the minute. But business owners who are driving a team forward, a business forward, and getting the fundamentals of leadership right now are going to help them in the future. But then I mentioned about the 5-day challenge. I've stumbled across a great market, which is in helping multi-level marketers and network marketers. So these people are selling products online and are scaling up. And I'm not in it for the products. I'm not earmarking myself as a product. It's the people who are scaling up and having lots of people in their team. So this accidentally came around by working with two clients. One was in the Philippines, one was in Singapore. They had large teams. They came on the leadership course because they knew they needed to level up their leadership. And we had fantastic results. And you know, when you look, you think maybe that this is something. Because I'm going in and working and building a community of people that come from lots of different network marketing backgrounds and experiences, for them to think slightly differently about how they project their business, level up themselves, level up their team, level up their leadership. So yeah, that's only just started. So yeah, it's been a great journey. So those two people really.
There is huge excitement in your voice, and you're what I call dynamic in that respect, because the energy is there, and I know fitness has played a huge part in that level of energy. So is there anybody in the fitness world that you would aspire to be, or, you know, admire?
Well, do you know what? It's going to sound corny as anything, but only yesterday my wife showed me a video that Joe Wicks had put on Instagram. And I've known, I'm a big advocate for going out there and understanding success.
Yes. Because
we only see success and we don't understand how they've got there. And all the things that we were talking about, my journey and our journey on LinkedIn and social media. And I knew his story, but I can totally resonate with it. Obviously, I've not stayed as such in the fitness industry, but him turning up to do boot camps and nobody turning up and giving flyers out there. I was there. Like the first ever boot camp I ever ran, it started snowing in April, 30 minutes before. And I was like, oh no. Nobody's going to turn up. And I think I had 2 people turn up. And now we have sort of, and again, it's not massive numbers. We have sort of 10 to 20 people each boot camp we run turn up. Nice. We've got 2 locations. I've got other instructors that deliver them for me now. And I would love to turn it into a franchise when I have the opportunity to focus on that. But again, his drive, determination, consistency, for my consistency and the drive from the boot camps has transferred over into my business. So I think whatever business you run, it doesn't matter about that. So as long as you are consistent, as long as you're passionate, you've got a big why, that will come across. And again, it's great. And I think sometimes we don't pat ourselves on the back enough, but I had some great feedback recently from some of the stuff I've been delivering. And sometimes you do have to take the time and say, oh, maybe I'm doing all right, and this is a great journey to be on. So yeah, I'm really excited for the future.
Yes, I can hear your excitement, and I wish you well, and I wish you everything, you know, as a result of all the effort and skills and the mindset and the training, and I'm sure you will be. And I'd like you to come back at some point just to sort of pick up as to where you are in that.
Definitely.
And
thank you so much for having me on.
You're welcome, and have a wonderful, wonderful weekend.
Yeah, you too.
What will you get up to this weekend?
Just family time.
Yes.
Family time. So getting the kids out in the fresh air, on the bikes. In obviously, I've created this lifestyle where I can be quite flexible, yes. But with the kids being at home and homeschooling, it's been quite unusual, the fact that they don't usually see me work that much, because I can fit it around the children, whereas now when they're at home, like, what's Sandy doing in his office all the time? But it's been great because, like one of my colleagues said, he said, at least you're now showing that what it takes to run a business. Absolutely. And I'm always having them in the office, showing them what I'm doing, how I'm doing it. They're going to probably do some videos for me at some point, edit them up and stuff. So yeah. all this modern world. So it's going to be fun.
All that to look forward to.
Yeah.
Wishing you well. Have a nice weekend. Bye-bye.
You too. Thank you.
Bye.